Well, Queensland Premier Palaszczuk has dismissed claims that Brisbane's strict three-day lockdown was actually an overreaction. Now, this is despite the fact it was prompted by just one. That's right, a single community infection of COVID-19. Have a listen.
What we are concerned about is making sure that we don't see the spread of this highly contagious UK variant. That's exactly the aim of this lockdown, and what we've seen over the last 3 days is zero community transmission. So that has been wonderful news, and I think we are all very relieved, and I think Greater Brisbane's very relieved as well.
For more on this, I'm joined by former Queensland Premier Campbell Newman in Brisbane. Now, Campbell, I've heard strikingly similar things from the South Australian Premier when he decided to lock us up because there was a small cluster of people. It was all smoke and mirrors, all politically designed and operated. Really, is this a massive overreaction, or has it been for the Queensland Premier?
I think it has been an overreaction, and the reason that we're all so relieved is that she's not getting immediately to inflict more pain and suffering on all of us. But Corey, let's just see what happened. They announced this late last week on Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, there were kilometre-long car traffic jams going north to the Sunshine Coast, south to the Gold Coast. There was panic buying in supermarkets. And people who obviously left Brisbane didn't even get the memo from the Premier and the Chief Health Officer that, if you went up there, you were actually meant to, self-quarantine for 3 days. And then there's the overreach about some of the things. Corey, we were for the last 3 days, up until 7 o'clock your time, daylight saving time today, we were required to wear a mask in our own private motor vehicle. And if we were exercising, going for a run, riding a bike, we were meant to wear a mask. Now, I checked the World Health Organization website, Corey, and it says specifically, absolutely in black and white, that you shouldn't be wearing a mask for vigorous exercise. And it also is quite silent on the wearing of masks in private motor vehicles. So they're making this stuff up. And it really is quite an assault on our civil liberties for the actual outcome that they've sort of got. I don't really know what the outcome is that they've got, because now it continues for another 10 days. We're all required to carry a mask. Perhaps, Corey, I'm going on a bit here, and thank you for indulging me. What we need across this nation, Corey, is we need a proper, consistent, logical, proportionate response to these sorts of things, a national plan. The nation's coming apart at the blooming seams with all these premiers doing their own thing, and yet what we need is consistency, and we need logic, and we need to know what the plan is. So for the Prime Minister and all the premiers, what's the darn plan?
Yeah, it sort of makes a mockery of National Cabinet when they can't even agree on what's good health advice or not. I suspect the masks thing, when you're told to do things like that in a public display of compliance against the international recommended health authorities, it is more about control than anything else. But you asked about the consequences, Campbell. The consequences of a 3-day lockdown in South Australia were $500 million worth of business losses and economic deterioration. I suspect it would be many times that in Brisbane. It's devastated families, small businesses. I mean, you must have heard stories about all of this. Can you relate some to us, or can you give us some tales
let me give you
happening?
Well, let me give you one straight away, Corey. And there was a story in the Courier Daily about a couple who last year, I think it was in April, got their wedding cancelled, and it happened again to them on the weekends. That's twice. Now, they were good sports about it, I suppose, in the scheme of things. They were sort of giving the government a bit of a leave pass on it. But, that's gone on, in so many ways. The trouble is, Corey, and what is so corrosive about this is, supposing you're in business, do you sign up to a new lease in your shop or your gym? Do you start a new business venture? Do you decide you're going to book a trip to go interstate to find new customers? You might get caught. You might be told you've got to spend 14 days in quarantine. When you come back, time lost, a very expensive trip. What about the Victorians who still can't get back into their home state? What about the Victorian government, saying that you've got to apply on a website to get out of Victoria? And as of a few minutes ago, still I think it was over an hour and a half into this new period of this new regulation, the website wasn't working. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Clear rules, simple rules, straightforward national rules that are consistent with what's required.
But the problem, Campbell, is the people who have been squeezed in this are not really big business. They've managed to adapt and to accommodate. It's not the politicians. They're still getting paid. It's not the public servants. They're still, gorging at the trough while they're working from home. It is the great middle class, the people who are taking risks with their business, that have got mortgages, they're up to their necks in debt trying to make a better life for them and their families. It's the education for their children. All of these things will come at a massive price because we've had 1 year of turmoil, and it looks like we're set for at least another 6 months of it.
Absolutely, Corey. And after almost a year, governments should have got it right. I mean, one thing I haven't raised, by the way, in our little talk this evening is the thing that the media in Queensland don't seem to want to get to the bottom of is how did this highly infectious strain of COVID escape from a quarantine hotel? Indeed, why are we running quarantine hotels in the big smoke when we should be doing it at remote facilities? And we're seeing a bit of movement on that front. But no one seems to want to ask the question, because we've been told that the cleaner did all the right things, and I'm prepared to believe that. But that then means that she wasn't given the right equipment, the right PPE, or the procedures weren't correct. We know that they're only testing them every week, but suddenly now they're going to test them every day. These are things that should not happen. And I just wish the media would stop being so docile, swallowing all the nonsense from every state premier and indeed the Prime Minister. Start to ask the tough questions. That's your job. Challenge, criticise, critique, and we'll get better outcomes. And then I turn to state oppositions and indeed the federal opposition. I mean, I've got to acknowledge Anthony Albanese has been having a go, but across the country, generally speaking, the opposition parties have been totally silent. They've been in their hammocks.
Yeah, Campbell.
I'll let people know something, Corey. You'll probably agree with me. I think this has been a great time to be a backbencher, either in government or in opposition. You don't have to go to all the functions. You can do a bit of social media from your back deck hammock, and life's good, and you continue to get paid while those small businesses are getting smashed, and you're not standing up for them. So I think you'd agree with that, Corey.
Campbell, absolutely, I agree with you, Campbell. We've got to take a break, but we're all paying the price for the failures of governments, and I think that's a travesty. Thanks for joining me.